Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ganati Mirandasya Gana Gana Shalakaya Jakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Taparakamalan Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarabhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lita Shri Vishaka Vicham Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourange Shri Radha Vrindavaneshwari Shabanusta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Check my volume and see. Yeah, okay, great. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9. Canto 9, yes. Chapter 9, and it's we're reading from text 7. So I'll just read the Sanskrit here. Text 7. Darayas yati te vegam rudrastvavatmasaririnam yashmin otamidam protam vishvam satvitatantushu. Srila Prabhupada's translation. Like a cloth woven of threads, extending for its length and breadth, this entire universe, in all its latitude and longitude, is situated under different potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva is the incarnation of the Lord, and thus he represents the supersoul in the embodied soul. He can sustain your forceful waves on his head. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The water of the Ganges is supposed to rest on the head of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who sustains the entire universe by different potencies. Lord Shiva is described in the Brahma Samhita 544. Siramyata dadhi vikara vishesha yogat sanjayate nahi tata pritagashti heto yashambhutam api tata samupaita karyat govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. Milk changes into yogurt when mixed with a yogurt culture. But actually, yogurt is constitutionally nothing but milk. Similarly, Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, assumes the form of Lord Shiva for the special purpose of material transactions. I offer my obeisance at Lord Govinda's lotus feet. Lord Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the same sense that yogurt is also milk, although at the same time, it is not milk. For the maintenance of the material world, there are 3 incarnations, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is Vishnu in an incarnation for the mode of ignorance. The material world exists predominantly in the mode of ignorance. Therefore, Lord Shiva is compared here to the longitude and latitude of the entire universe, which resembles a cloth woven of threads, extended for both its length and breadth. Namo Om Vishnu-Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirashesha Sunyavadi Vastatyadeshatarane. Namo Om Vishnu-Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namane. Hare Krishna. So once again, I want to thank the devotees that are on the call. I'm very grateful that you're giving me an opportunity to share with you some things about this wonderful verse about Lord Shiva. Guru Charan, I see that you've been having so many beautiful, wonderful speakers sharing Srimad Bhagavatam with the devotees. And many of the devotees have been speaking about this amazing pastime, which is kind of right now. Prabhupada is gone into sharing about Lord Shiva. However, before that, he was talking a little bit about this conflict. And we know that in this conflict, there's a problem. And here we understand from the purport that Ganges have now descended on the head of Lord Shiva. And some of the devotees previously have beautifully described this entire story of how that happened, why it happened. I believe it's Janavi's father. I can't think of his name right now, but anyway, he beautifully described the pastime of how this actually came about. And it's nice to know. And so I won't go into that because you can certainly just go and listen to his class. However, we're now at this point where Krishna, we're being explained by Bhagirath, O king, I wish to go down to planet Earth. I'm sorry. So Bhagirath is sharing, he's sharing in the verse before this about those who are saintly because of devotional service. And then now, this example, this beautiful visual is being given to us in this translation, like a cloth woven on threads, extending for its length and breadth. The entire universe, in all its latitude and longitude, is situated in the different potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that beginning part of this translation, when I think about it, it reminds me immediately of the Brahma Samhita and how that book is just such an important book for us as aspiring Vaishnavas, or at least for me, an aspiring Vaishnava, because this book, the Brahma Samhita, gives us a complete understanding about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and all the different expansions and just how all the different universes are laid out. And so in the very beginning of the Brahma Samhita, Srila Prabhupada clearly and distinctly let us know who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's important because oftentimes, just in terms of being a devotee, in terms of aspiring to be a devotee, we have different interpretations of who Lord Shiva is. And so in this text, it's Srila Prabhupada is explaining to us that Krishna and Lord Shiva, we can understand them as Achinta Beta Beta Tattva, simultaneously one and different. And that's being explained to us through the Brahma Samhita. And the first verse of the Brahma Samhita helps us to understand Krishna's position. So the first verse, as all of us know, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karanam. And that verse says, Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal spiritual body. He's the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he's the prime cause of all causes. So that fact needs to be established in order for us to properly understand and properly respect Lord Shiva's position, Lord Shiva's role. Lord Shiva is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, in this purport, we're learning that that it's in many ways he could be seen as not different than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in some of our texts, of our Vedic text, we understand Lord Shiva is a demigod. We understand him to be like the chief amongst the demigods in one sense, that he's the caretaker of the material realms. and he's the protector of those personalities that maybe they may have some aspirations, to understand more about spiritual life. And so he is kind of like the guiding person that can direct someone to move into that understanding of transcendence. And that's described also in this Brahma Samhita. There's different dhams, and we understand that Lord Shiva, he's taking care of the what's called Mahesh Dham, and then there's Hari Dham, and in between that there's like a kind of like a separate or a division. There's a division before somebody can actually go to to Hari Dham, the Goloka Vrindavan. And Lord Shiva, that's one of his roles, is that he prepares people to be able to even get an understanding of what that means. I myself haven't been a worshiper of Lord Shiva for many years. This text is really important to me, because although I was worshiping Lord Shiva, I never really had a philosophical understanding of who he was or who he is. And so that's the beauty of Bhakti. That's what's so wonderful about Bhakti Yoga. In Bhakti, we get to understand everything. This is the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. He has given us just clear understanding and clear visuals. Here we have this beautiful visual today of all of Krishna's expansions, and how all of Krishna's expansions are connected to him in the absolute sense. At the same time, they all have different roles. They all play different roles. And so their roles are important for us to understand from a philosophical perspective. So can't say I have much philosophical understanding about this. However, I do have more than I did when I was worshiping Lord Shiva, in the sense that I now understand. Okay, Prabhupada says here that the Ganges is resting, of course, on Lord Shiva's head. And as I said, that's a beautiful, beautiful pastime of how that came about. And Lord Shiva, Prabhupada says here, is an incarnation, and he's sustaining all of these different universes. So if we can understand that Lord Shiva's role is a caretaker of the material realms, if we can somehow have that visual, and that he, in his compassion, he's understood to be most compassionate, Lord Shiva. He accepted this request from Bhagirath, so that Ganges could actually protect the world, protect the material universes from the onslaught of Mother Ganga, of the strength of Mother Ganga. And so in that sense, he took Mother Ganga on his head. And this is the reason we often see Mother Ganga flowing off Lord Shiva's head. And so, however, Prabhupada explains here that he's protecting, he's sustaining the universes. At the same time, he's doing this as a servant, right? As he's serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's serving the representatives of the Lord. And in that way, if we understand him as a servant, then we can put that understanding of him in proper perspective, because he's serving Krishna and all Krishna's parts and parcels. And because he's most compassionate, he's serving Krishna's parts and parcels that may not have any understanding at all, no understanding about anything in relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so Prabhupada goes on here to talk about in this Brahma Samhita in the 5th chapter and 45th verse. And however, before we go to that verse, it's again just establishing Krishna's position. This is so important for us as devotees, because oftentimes someone may worship Lord Shiva and they may, I mean, I know I did this myself and I thought, well, Krishna is God. I mean, Shiva is God, right? And Shiva is. However, there is a difference. So this understanding of simultaneously one and different is really key for us as devotees, because oftentimes we meet people that they worship, Krishna, Shiva, absolutely as the Lord. And we have very renowned personalities that they worship Lord Shiva as the supreme Lord. I just was talking with one person that was sharing with me about one very famous person now, has become very famous. His name is Sadhguru. And Sadhguru, his worshipful Lord is Lord Shiva. And he worships Lord Shiva as the supreme. It's not that, he's not saying Krishna is the supreme. He actually worships Lord Shiva as the supreme. And in that way, he teaches all his followers. And in my own case, when I was a disciple of Muktananda, I also understood Lord Shiva to be supreme. I had no real understanding about Krishna. And so this understanding of Shiva as simultaneously one, Prabhupada explains in the purport, milk changes into yogurt when mixed with yogurt culture, but actually milk is constitutionally nothing but milk. So if we just can kind of have a meditation on that visual, and for those of you that make yogurt, you know that, you put something in the milk when it's boiling, and then it takes some time and it becomes yogurt. So similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he originally is, as explained in the first verse of Brahma Samhita, he originally is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, he starts the different expansions in terms of creation and how things unfold, even to this point where we are now trying to understand all this amazing, philosophy. At least I'm trying to understand this amazing philosophy. So anyway, he says, this point that Prabhupada makes in this verse here that says, the Supreme Personality assumes the form of Lord Shiva for the special purpose of the material transaction. And so we shared about that. In our world, in our universe, and in all universes, Lord Shiva is the personality that's in charge. And he really is the person that can help us help persons that are mainly in the mode of ignorance. And Prabhupada mentioned in this purport that this material world exists predominantly in the mode of ignorance, which means that most people in the world are eligible candidates for Lord Shiva's mercy. And so that's why we have, spiritual teachers that are representing Lord Shiva, because they have this knowledge that Lord Shiva is the direct representative or the direct expansion of the personality of Godhead that is here in this universe to care for those that are in the modes of ignorance. And so back to this understanding, though, of Krishna, because as I was saying, oftentimes it's so misunderstood in so many places, especially in my experience, having lived in India for many, many years. There is some misunderstanding about who is Krishna and who is Lord Shiva. And so I want to share with you some direct references to help us understand the position of Krishna. Because oftentimes people that worship Lord Shiva, they can become a little angry or a little disturbed or a little annoyed when a bhakta, devotee, aspiring to love Krishna, share that Krishna is God, that Krishna is the supreme. So oftentimes that creates some disturbances, because of course, as we all know, if you, even in the material sense, if you have someone you really love, and then somebody comes and tells you, no, that's not the person to love. You're to love somebody else. That can agitate or bring some discomfort in someone's mind, right? And the ego is always acting in ways that that is not aligned with who we really are. And so in that sense, in a material sense, we are often affected by what maybe ego thoughts. And so that disturbance can be there. So I want to kind of like a little bit demystify this understanding about Lord Shiva and Krishna, because I know how important that was for me in my understanding of who Krishna is, how important for me to understand from knowledge, from wisdom. And so great personalities have helped us to understand this. So one person that I really appreciate so much, her name is Queen Kunti. And Queen Kunti has many prayers, as you know, and there's some that are more kind of known than others. However, in two of her prayers, this has helped me so much, to in my early years of being a devotee and having been a Shiva Bhakta, it helped me to make the transition of understanding who Krishna is in relationship to Lord Shiva and who Lord Shiva is in relationship to Krishna. And so in verse 26, Kunti Devi, in her prayer, in her prayer 26, she says, your lordship, and she's speaking to Krishna, she says, your lordship can be easily approached only by those who are materially exhausted. So only by those that are materially exhausted. So Krishna's representative as Lord Shiva is to assist those that are still materially and just connected with those that are still materially connected. They still have material desires and they still have material aspirations. They may still have, just material attachments. And so Lord Shiva, his role is to assist those persons. And the way he assists those persons, I heard someone ask that question in a class I was listening to. One devotee asked this other devotee that was giving class, he asked, well, how does Lord Shiva do that? So the way that Lord Shiva does that is as a servant of the Lord, as a servant of Krishna. Prabhupada explains here that Lord Shiva actually also is in our hearts as super soul, and he gives us that intelligence when we really want to understand more about the Supreme Personality or more about the Lord, just in general. We may not yet understand, we want to know more about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but we understand, we want to know more. I remember I was worshiping Lord Shiva. I was living in New York and I was going to the ashram regularly and upstate New York. And yet I knew that there was something that was still missing. I understood that. And somehow I remember just one night, just looking out my window in my apartment in New York and looking at the stars and just praying, if there's something more, please let me know. Please let me know. And it wasn't that long before a devotee just showed up in my life. So even when we're worshiping Lord Shiva, there may still be within our hearts, because the Lord is there, there may still be some hankering for understanding more. When that more happens, then that desire for more happens, then Lord Shiva, he's there to direct us, to help us to understand more. And for me, what happened is he directed me, my wanderings in my heart, by sending a devotee to help me. And that devotee actually introduced me to Govinda's restaurant in 55th Street, New York. So it's like a process that really, really works if we can kind of, understand it. And so Kunti then goes on to say, one who's on the path of material progress, which certainly I was on, material progress, trying to improve him or herself with respectable parentage. That was important to me. My parents was supposed to be, honored, and I wanted other people to honor my parents. Great opulence. Certainly, I was working in an environment where I wanted more and more opulence. High education. Yes, I was graduating from one of the best schools in America. Bodily beauty. I don't know about that one, but anyway, that's there. That those persons cannot approach Krishna with sincere feelings, because to have bhakti means love. It's a emotion. It's a feeling. It's a feeling of love for the Lord, wanting to be with the Lord. And if we have those things, then there are obstacles to really connecting deeply with the Supreme Lord. However, Krishna is so very kind and so very merciful and most compassionate that he then expands into this compassionate aspect of himself as Lord Shiva. And then Lord Shiva is there to assist us in order to get more understanding or help us, even with our material desires. That's Lord Shiva. He's known as Ashutosh, we know. And he is there to give us fulfill whatever material desires that we may have. Sometimes not, sometimes very unfortunate in some circumstances. There's pastimes like that. And then the second verse I wanted to read from Kunti. Kunti says, obeisance unto you. This is to Krishna. She's speaking to Krishna. Obeisance to you. You are the property of the materially impoverished. So once we are at least understanding theoretically that we are willing and ready and trying to give up our unnecessary or unhealthy attachments in terms of material energy, once we at least have that theoretical understanding, and once we've heard from a devotee, sometimes it may not be directly a quote unquote labeled spiritual master. Sometimes it can just be one of Krishna's devotees. In my case, it was one of Krishna's devotees that just have affection, for Krishna. And so that person didn't have a label of a spiritual master, although it is important as we evolve in our wanting to know Krishna, to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. That's there in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi Parapatena, Paripashena Sevaya, Upadeshantate Gyanam Gyaninas Tattvadarshanaha. Yes, we must take darshan we must take shelter of a spiritual master. However, Krishna is so kind that the spiritual master's representatives are all over, everywhere, in so many different places. So if we can have that somehow, if we get the mercy and the grace from one of Krishna's devotees, then we can start on this process of becoming disenchanted with the things of the material world. And so Kunti says, you are the property of the material impoverished. So you got to kind of come to that place where we start understanding it's not about me. I'm done with being a controller. I'm done with wanting things to go the way I want it to be. I'm done with that. I'm ready to now surrender and hear from, this devotee person that has come in my life, whatever. And then she says, you have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of material modes of nature. Krishna has nothing to do with that. And so that's the difference. Lord Shiva, his role is to be a caretaker for material energy. That is his role. he is taking care of those that are influenced by the modes of especially ignorance. And there are many, many, many pastimes of that. And then Queen Kunti says, you are self-satisfied. You are self-satisfied. And you are the most gentle. So this quality of gentility that Lord Shiva expresses is coming from Krishna. All of these beautiful qualities of Lord Shiva that people are attracted to, which are wonderful qualities, they are qualities that he has been endowed with by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he is favorably using these qualities in order to serve the Lord. And he is just so divinely, compassionately going into different kinds of environments where people that have no clue, no understanding, he is awakening such persons in order to be able to at least come to a platform of meeting a devotee of the Lord. And so there's also, this is from Queen Kunti. This is one of my favorite personalities in Srimad Bhagavatam. I find that her prayers, each prayer is so significant because each one of her prayers I have found in my life at different times in my journey. You know, I have been able to get some awareness, some awakening, some deeper understanding about something, just like now, this understanding of the difference, simultaneously one and different. And what is the difference between Krishna and Lord Shiva? And what is the oneness? What is it that's one? They're one, but however, they're still different. And so I wanted to go back to this verse of Brahma Samhita. We're now in this purport where Prabhupada is referencing 544 so that we can understand this concept of milk that changes into yogurt. And so I'm going to go to Brahma Samhita, which I recommend to devotees, all devotees, especially Matajis. I recommend to the devotees. There is a class on the Brahma Samhita on the Vaishnavi ministry that's given by a Mataji. Her name is Rukmini. It's not our Rukmini that we know. It's not Prabhupada Rukmini. She's a Rukmini that is very knowledgeable, and she does this presentation on the Brahma Samhita. And it just really, it's just a beautiful, it's a simple in some sense. However, it's very deep and just really helping us to understand the Lord, how to understand how Brahma Samhita clearly explains to us from the very beginning to the end, everything we ever want to know about Krishna, everything, and also about Lord Shiva. This is here in the Brahma Samhita, So I highly recommend that class, as well as all the other classes that devotees have given on these verses. Yesterday, I think Nam Ras Prabhu, he spoke, and he was quoting from Nectar of Devotion, which was so beautiful, and he gave so many practical, wonderful examples. So here again, text 45. Krishna says, I'm sorry, this is in the Brahma Samhita. So this is the verse that we're reading today. Just as milk is transformed into curd by action of acids, and yet the effect curd is neither same as nor different from its cause, milk. So I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Shambhu is a transformation for the performance of the work of destruction. This is the work of destroying the universe in terms of the modes of ignorance. And so then Prabhupada says in the purport, and it's a little short purport, so I wanted to read this. He says, the real nature of Shambhu, the presiding deity of Maheshtam, that's Lord Shiva's planet, He lives Maheshnam. Shambhu is not a second Godhead other than Krishna. Those who entertain such discriminating sentiment commit a great offense against the Supreme Lord. The supremacy of Shambhu is subservient to that of Govinda. Hence, they are not really different from each other. The non-distinction is established by the fact that just as milk treated with acid turns into curd, so Govinda becomes a subservient when he himself attains a distinct personality by the addition of a particular element of adulteration. This personality, this is speaking of Lord Shiva, this personality has no independent initiative. I love that word. I love how this is in the Brahma Samhita, because when I think of initiatives, immediately I go to, different initiatives that we've all been involved in ISKCON, in our journey, in our spiritual journey, whether it's whether it's from a material perspective of material jobs, having some initiative, or whether it's, even in our evolving in spiritual life, we have some different initiatives. I know I'm working on 3 different initiatives at this time. However, Lord Shiva, he has no independent initiative. Nothing that he's doing is separate from Krishna. Just like the devotees, we are getting trained for our initiatives to really to be focused for Krishna, to please Krishna. And so Lord Shiva, he has none. He's not getting trained for that. He's that. He has no initiatives. He doesn't care about anything else other than to please Krishna. And so the last part of this, I'm just going to read one last part of it. Govinda manifests himself as a guna avatar in the form of Shambhu, who is the separated portion of Govinda imbued with the principle of his subjective linear portion. The personality of the destructive principle in the form of time has been identified with that of Shambhu by spiritual evidences that have been added in the commentary. And so that's from the Brahma Samhita explaining. This is the verse that Prabhupada quotes here in 544.5 of the Brahma Samhita. And that helps us to understand this aspect of who Lord Shiva is. We can also understand that the relationship between Lord Shiva, it's, as I said earlier, it's one of oneness and difference. They're one at the same time. They're one in that Krishna is the supreme cause of everything. All of us are connected to Krishna. We're all spiritual beings. At the same time, Lord Shiva is different because he's in a role. He's engaging in a role that he's responsible for in that manifestation of Krishna. And we know that he's in charge of the mode of ignorance. And then there's this very beautiful story. I think I heard the story from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. And that story talks about Vallabhacharya and how Vallabhacharya, that he's very dear to Krishna, extremely dear to Krishna. And he was having some, he was also very dear to Lord Shiva. And so one time he was having some ups and downs in his life. It's explained that he was distressed in his life. And of course, all of us, I'm sure, can relate to that. And so he went to the temple of Lord Shiva to pray. And Lord Shiva was very enamored by his, Lord Shiva really took his prayers very seriously because he was very, very sincere. And then Lord Shiva appeared to him. And so Vallabhacharya, instead of asking Lord Shiva for some material desire, which most people do, he asked to please give me what is dear to you. Please give me what is dear to you. That's like one of the prayers of my spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. he prays like that to Srila Prabhupada. He asked all his disciples to say this prayer, which is quite an amazing prayer to, just be, do whatever Prabhupada wants, whatever Prabhupada wants. That's what he wants to do. And so here, Vallabhacharya prayed like that. And he prayed to Lord Shiva, give me what's dear to you. And so Lord Shiva smiled and gave him the deity of Lord Krishna. And so Vallabhacharya is explained in our scriptures that he became a Vaishnava, and however, he never rejected Lord Shiva. And he considered Lord Shiva his guru. And so this is Lord Shiva. He's a servant of the Lord. And if those practitioners that may worship Lord Shiva, I still sometimes have this in my mind, Om Namah Shivaya Namaha. I don't know if it will ever go away. However, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, by the mercy of the devotees, I have come to understand that it's not about who's supreme. It's really about understanding how we can be guided, how we can follow divine guidance, how we can accept divine guidance, and how ultimately we can become sincere in our service, sincere in our desire to know and love the Lord. Okay, I see that Atina is there. Her hand is up. So I'm going to close at this time. And I want to thank you so very much. Hare Krishna. I was told that there wasn't a greeting, so I just went on and on. So sorry about that. Okay, Atina, I'm ready. Atina.
Hare Krishna, Lila, Mataji Prabhu. So nice to see you. Thank you so much for such a nice class. And since you are you were a Shiva devotee, I feel like my questions are directed to the right person. I have a few questions, and perhaps I'm trying to group them. Perhaps my first two you could address. You had talked about, and even the purport talks about how Shiva, the incarnation of Vishnu, there's three: Brahma as the creator, Vishnu as maintainer, and then Shiva as kind of like the destroyer. And please correct me, because since I'm not a Shiva devotee, maybe my understanding is incorrect or not completely not correct. Many times I hear that Vishnu is the destroyer of ignorance. And so he destroys your ignorance. And that never actually made sense to me, because the root problem of our existence in the material world is ignorance. So especially in the Vedic paradigm, not to go into, but for example, in Christianity, they say the root cause of our position is sin. And then in the Buddhist tradition, it's disharmony, say with nature. And in the Vedic paradigm, it's all about ignorance. We've forgotten our constitutional position as servant of Krishna, and we've forgotten our relationship. So once that ignorance is shed, then you've made it. You're back to Godhead, or you've reached any sort of liberation, even you can say Brahmajyoti liberation. So since ignorance is the key root problem of our existence in the material world, isn't that something that only Krishna can do? And from my understanding of reading all our, Srimad Bhagavatam and our Vedic literature, Krishna is the only one that can shed, or who can give us liberation. It must be sanctioned by Krishna and no one else. And so once you reach
Atina, my love. So I teach communication. And so yes. If we can take a breath right here, just take a little breath. Beautiful. And now I just want to be clear with you, on the same page with you. I want to be in love with you. And I'm hearing many, many wonderful, beautiful questions and thoughts. And so I really would love to at least express, maybe answer to one part, and then we can go on to another part, and then another part. Is that okay with you?
Yes, absolutely. And I apologize. That is my Vata aspect.
No problem, my love. No problem. I mean, this is, this is a part of being, of what work we do for Krishna. So my work for Krishna in my life, in this part of my lifetime, is to understand communication. That's part of my work. That's part of what I teach. And so Lord Shiva, yes, as you so beautifully described, he is in charge of destruction. And ultimately, as we heard in the Brahma Samhita, everything is being arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, just like if we think about the president in America, I'll use America just as an example. There are many of his representatives that are in different parts of the world that are doing different kinds of services on behalf of the president and the president's, role of being a president. So similarly, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahma Samhita tells us, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna is a supreme person. He's a supreme person. So yes, absolutely. Lord Shiva is simply following direction, if you will, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's been given that amazing, yes, I love that, Vaishnavam Yata Shambhu. He's such an amazing servant of Krishna, and he's carrying out exactly what Krishna wants him to do, 100% dedicated to fulfilling Krishna's desires. And so ultimately, yes, as you're sharing so beautifully, everything comes from Krishna. However, Krishna has representatives. He doesn't do it himself. Thank you so much, Venkata. Wow, this is such a blessing to hear that from you. Thank you. So Atina, my love, I'm back to you on if that made any sense to you at all.
Thank you so much. I think I have to still sit with that because just on this aspect, while yes, Shiva is a representative of Krishna, it seems like, especially say devotees of Shiva, they're still in ignorance in one sense. They're still bound in the material world. And I remember there's a story told.
Let me answer that one question just from my own experience, because I was a devotee of Shiva and I was definitely bound by ignorance. However, because a devotee came in my life, then I actually became a devotee, a disciple. And then I became aware. I received knowledge. And Atina, how I got this, how this happened to me, two things happened. A devotee came in my life, and my guru, his name is Muktananda, he gave me what was called at that time Shaktipat, which means it was like an initiation. So he took a peacock feather, and he put it on top of my head, this peacock feather, and in my ear, he gave me a mantra. And Atina, that mantra he gave me was the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Atina, at that time, I had no knowledge of that, what he was saying in my ear, absolutely nothing, no understanding. However, when I met that devotee, which was really interesting, that was the mantra the devotee was telling me about. And so, yes, in answer to that question, that part of your question, Shiva's devotees, they can be in ignorance. However, by the mercy of the Lord, and for us, the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we get an opportunity to receive real wisdom about Krishna. Okay, Atina, my love, that part I'm complete. Now, if you'd like to continue, I'm willing to hear, or if anybody else would have any other questions.
Thank you. It's interesting. What I think is one question, you actually break down. There's many questions in my one question. So I do have more, but I do want to give the opportunity to others if they have questions. If not, I have the questions I wanted to hit as well. Thank you.
Thank you, my love, and thank you for your sincerity. Questions are the basis of bhakti. So please don't ever give up that desire to ask questions. Thank you so very much. Anyone else have anything you'd like to correct or share? Or I like feedback. I like corrections also so much. They help me to grow. And yeah.
I just had one appreciation. Like I personally like how you blended your personal experience of worshipping Lord Shiva and how you came to Krishna consciousness, and especially now, just how you answered for Atina's questions. It's so beautiful how you blended philosophy with a personal experience. It was very powerful to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a beautiful thing about Bhakti, right? But by the time we get to Bhakti, we've had lots of experiences in the world. By the time Krishna we catch up with Krishna in our hearts, the Lord in our heart, then we've already kind of suffered so much with so many things. So yes, yes, in my life, there's been many different kinds of experiences, and for me, that's what Bhakti, that's why I love Bhakti Yoga so much, because it helps me to put all those things in proper perspective. And I love Atina's question. Krishna is in everything in my growth and experiences, the nice ones and the not so nice ones. They've all helped me to become, or I'm learning and trying to become more of a lover of Krishna. Anyone else?
If you have some time, if there are no other, okay, there is one solution.
I have one question, and it's a quick one. It's Angelica here. I am simply curious about how we are to approach Lord Shiva. Since Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and yet simultaneously you spoke really beautifully how they are simultaneously one and different, and of course he performs different roles. As we are also praying to other devotees and asking them for protection and for guidance, how are we to approach Lord Shiva in our prayers? And how would you advise that?
Is that Angelica?
Yes, it's Angelica.
So nice. Your voice is, I can recognize your voice. Very well. Thank you so much for that beautiful question. Thank you. You know, Srila Prabhupada, he didn't talk so much about Lord Shiva. He did. However, it wasn't so much of a focus in the early years of devotional life. When I joined in 1979, it was rare that I could have a conversation about Lord Shiva with the devotees, because there was just so much emphasis on Krishna. And how I understand in Bhakti that we can pray to Lord Shiva like this Vallabhacharya did, to be able to serve Krishna and Krishna's devotees. Yeah, because Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava, right? He's the greatest devotee. He's such a servant of Krishna. So it's kind of like if we can drop down a little bit and we can think of praying to our spiritual masters or spiritual teachers, you know, to help us to understand how to love Krishna, help us to understand how to serve Krishna's devotees. So in the same way, we can pray to Lord Shiva like that, because he is ultimately the greatest devotee, you know, he's described, you know, as someone that is such a beautiful example of a lover of Krishna. You know, there's so many beautiful pastimes about Lord Shiva. Even if we go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya himself composed a prayer for Lord Shiva himself. So we cannot, at least I cannot begin to understand the Lord Shiva and who he is in terms of that role of serving Krishna. Just like I can't really understand my spiritual master, the depth of my spiritual master. Can't really understand, not really. So Angelica, my prayer sometimes is still, Lord Shiva, you are such a devotee. Help me to be a devotee. Please, you're such a devotee of Krishna. Please help me. Please open my heart. You're sitting there, you know, in this role of service. Open my heart so that I can, you know, become free from my unhealthy attachments to material life. I pray like that.
Thank you so much.
I miss you. I miss you so much.
I miss you too, and we may see each other soon, actually.
Beautiful, wonderful. You're coming to country life. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Haribol, my love. Haribol, my love. So, Gora Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. If there are any other questions, if you have time, otherwise,
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you,
thank you
Gora,
so much, Madhuri.
for
Thank you.
engaging me in this amazing service.
Oh.
I'm so grateful to you and to the
Thank you.
devotees at the Bhakti Center. And I thank all the devotees that listen to the class. You know, I'm so grateful for your support. And I'm so very, very grateful that you are taking your time, you know, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from all the different speakers, you know, throughout the week. Yeah, there's so many beautiful speakers on this program. Yeah, it's just wonderful. I love listening. I try to listen to the classes as much as I can.
Thank you so much for your association and kind encouragement. Thank you very much. Hargesh was
Hari
Lila
Hari.
Devi Dasi.
Haribol, Haribol Atina. Hari Haribol, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, my love. Hare Krishna. Thanks.